Hello everyone and welcome to our Circle and Salve Women. For today, I want to first apologize for my attire. It's school year, and it's the beginning of the school year, and you front load a lot. For you educators out there, you truly understand that it is about establishing relationships, and this is an interesting year because we want to come in knowing that some students haven't been in school for a year, and we want to embrace each and every one of them and get to know each and every one of them. So if I am looking in the, like I made no effort to dress, indeed I did, except that it is what it is, and you really have to just take it in and say, okay, this is the time I have to make this video, and it's truly the moment that I have to embrace. So thank you for being understanding, and by all means say what you want to say, but hopefully you understand that as an educator, I put children first, and so thank you for having the heart to just go, she's fine. And so the article that we want to talk about today, or I would like to speak on, is the book that I read, The $1 Billion Spy by David E. Hoffman. Now, I don't want to go in deep about was he really truly worth $1 billion or so, right? Because what we can accept in all that information that he gave, we would have to then come to some understanding that it was priceless, because he really, with this, Tolkachev is who I'm talking about in this story, Adolf Tolkachev, and please, if I am being disrespectful in mispronouncing the name, know that it's not intentional. I just hope that I am saying his name correctly. But this is a story about an engineer who decides to then betray the Soviet Union. He had his reasons, and we're going to talk about that instead of focusing on whether or not he was even worth the $1 billion that of information that they have claimed cost that much or accumulated that much, whether it be $1 million or multi-million dollars. I'm sure by now it would have been estimated to be about $1 billion or so, but we know that it created great hurt, and perhaps it hurt financially and time-wise as well for the Soviet Union when he made this decision to betray his country and that's a strong word, and that's what I want to focus on, but really ultimately causing some very, very secret information to be released and revealed to the opposition, which is the US. And so with the CIA working with him for quite some time, there have been maybe others that to argue that it was that the Soviet Union, the KGB, and everybody else involved were already well aware of it in several months, and they were just following him until it was the right time to stop him. At the end, they were able to apprehend him and put a stop to it. And so you'll discover that in the book. However, there are those that would say that in this book that really took note that yet there was another betrayal took place, because when people had been scorned, in this case a former CIA agent was the one to actually give the name of Tolkachev, and was and his name that I believe had changed twice in this entire espionage. And we really have to focus in then as to why someone decides to betray, because it is such it is such a conscious decision. It's an act of treason, and you ultimately are deciding, not only am I going to betray my country, but I am going to risk my life doing so. And I know this, not only am I risking my life, but knowing that anyone in my family could also be impacted and affected, and therefore perhaps punished in the harshest ways if they were to ever discover that my family were involved. Luckily for Tolkachev, his son and his wife were freed from any of it, having been said that they knew nothing. And it's great to hear that his son continues to be an architect, as I know that in the story he had reached out as compensation to get some things that would help to support his starting love at that time to become an architect, which is fascinating because at least we can say that out of all of this came something great. And from what I've learned, his wife received immunity from it as well. So that ended up on a good end. But how many of us have betrayed and have affected family members or those we dearly love, and to maybe not even their own full knowledge or grasp of everything that you are doing, and you made that ultimate choice to decide this is an act that would cause other people to be really hurt, damaged for life perhaps, and yet I am going to make that conscious decision to still continue. Now, in this case, we have to think, is there ever a time where it's just cause to betray? And I then, coming to that, stop and think, well, here's my moment to ponder upon that and reflect. Now, Tolkachev, his reasoning was more of a personal vendetta, a need for vengeance, because he felt that his country or his government had wronged his wife's family, and there also some light on how his family were wronged as well. And so he was very unhappy and bitter and wanted to make sure that, in essence, he was going to basically show them, his dissatisfaction for the way that they had received treatment as he grew up and saw these things, and his wife's story as well. And so that's his justification for his actions. But we have to also understand that he decided to betray his country, and in the act of doing it, he actually hurt them and set them back for perhaps a very long time. Had he not revealed any of those secrets, perhaps his country would be so much stronger militarily, if that's a word, or in their weaponry or any of their schematics, their plans, just to be very, very, very forceful in their ways of having planned out all that they had. Had it not been revealed, how would the world change, and how would we actually see their country in a different light had all of that they had planned out been then strengthened without anyone knowing, and what kind of damage would they have been able to do had it not been discovered of all the many things that he revealed. Because in this story, it got to a point where it really showed how much just he became so bold about it in this book that he started taking some things home to study and then reveal. He took not only one rolls of film, but hundreds, over 100 at times. And to me, it's like just the discovery of someone being able to do that. If I were to be betrayed at that level, you would have to think, not only am I going to be damaged for all of the information that has been released, but spiritually and emotionally and mentally, you have to feel a bit damaged for not even realizing what someone had done for a long period of time. Now, their country, the Soviet Union, would have had to, at that time, they would admit that they'd known for some time and they were just following him until it was time to apprehend him. But at that, now I realize that maybe there could be a time where sometimes you're defensive about it, and whether you really did know or not, maybe you kind of want to ease up your pain by saying, I knew all this time that he was going to betray, and yet he had done it for so long. And what's interesting is that not only did he betray, but then a former CIA, because he was scorned based off of this book, he was the one to then divulge of all of this information of this spy, and then he was eventually discovered, coming from that end of confession that led to his captivity. And here's the deal: for my students or my own children, I would have to state that betrayal is wrong. There's no sugarcoating it. You have to say that wrong is wrong. You cannot state to others and say, well, in that case, it was okay. Because we cannot create such a disclarity, make it unclear for the next generation to say that anytime you betray, you would have to ask, well, was there a just cause? So I would have to then reflect on that piece and really say to myself, was there truly a just cause? And in his case, he thought that there was. Or why else would he then risk his own life, risk his family members' lives, or that could have perhaps been seen as also been a part of it or had some knowledge of it. Luckily, again, they were proven to be innocent in this case. But how many of us perhaps have put ourselves in a position where we did decide to betray? And hopefully not so many in this world, I really hope. But yet, then your family was impacted by the decision that you made. And this is why I ultimately would have to say that betrayal in any case would have to be deemed wrong. You will always have some justification for your actions because we are human and we want to say that what I did was justified because here's what happened to me, or here's what happened to someone I loved, and therefore it's okay for me to do it because of the fact that the act was given reason. So did I ever choose to betray? Growing up, you don't think of such a word. And sometimes you do things out of honor for someone. And so in my article, I reflected upon a time where my papa had approached me. Parents are instinctive. And I remember him saying, hey, tell me anytime that you feel your sister's up to no good. And when my papa would say these things to me, it wasn't all the time. So when he would make such a statement, it was more of like a command that I had to honor, because I knew in my heart that he was anticipating or really counting on me to help him out. And in my mind, I thought it was something that was going to be helpful. That's something that my sister was up to no good, and he knew it. So I remember not thinking anything really of it, because there was no thought that, okay, maybe he knew something was up. And for me, my sister and I had shared a room. I remember walking in, and then all of a sudden her half of her body was out the window. Now this was a second-story apartment building. And I went into panic, like, what is she doing? What is going on? And I remember immediately what my papa had stated to me. So the only thing I did was I ran to go and tell my papa in the living room, that what she was doing. And when she was stopped, luckily she didn't jump out that window. And, it ended up really causing a rift between my sister and I, because she had saw it as an act of betrayal. And I know she didn't use those words, but when I really look at this book, and I really try to find a time as to when I ever made some subconscious or some conscious decision to betray anybody, that is the moment where I thought to myself, my sister must have thought that I wanted to gain something out of this by telling my papa that she was up to no good and she was doing something. My just cause of that was I saw my sister trying to jump out of a second-story window, and I went into panic, not knowing why she was doing it. It was really just to sneak out, I realized. But, it wasn't something that I saw myself ever doing. It wasn't something that I could concoct in my head to ever do. And so perhaps it was so new to me that when I saw it, I didn't know what to do. And the only savior that I had in my head was my papa telling me, tell me if you ever see her doing something she's not supposed to be doing. And so when I did that, in her mind, she definitely expressed that I had betrayed her. Again, not using those words, but ever since then, it was always this constant, like I was just going to be someone she couldn't trust, that I was always going to be, siding with my papa, and I was telling him. I couldn't express to her how hurtful that was, and that in my mind, I thought I was actually helping, and I was trying to help her to be veering in the right direction in life. And, later on coming to find out that people are who they are, and you can't stop them from becoming who they want to be. But being younger, I didn't have any sense to do otherwise other than follow and honor what my papa had said, is to basically share with him anytime that my sister was up to no good. And it silenced me at that point after that, because I realized that in that act of me going to my papa, it also wasn't me to really betray. I did not want my sister to feel that I would be against her, that I would tell on her, that I was doing this to gain some kind of reward or some acknowledgement of some good deed that I was doing. And so I, after that, just kind of let her be. But I look back and I think to myself, why did I stop? Why did I not continue to tell my papa whenever she was up to no good? Perhaps that would really have, have allowed me to help her to be going in the right direction, rather than me wanting so badly to have her accept me as her younger sister who dearly loved her and wanted to be on her side. So in that case, people could say, wow, you betrayed your sister, and you have to have that sisterhood. You have to be the one to back each other up. And in that case, I would think not, because I look back and think my papa was in the right, and I should have been the one to protect her and help her out whenever I could. But in this book, when I think about what Tolkachev did, I know that it was out of act of bitterness. I can say that out of, just reading the contents of what he had expressed in the story based off of Hoffman's perspective and vantage point of what had occurred in his mind at the time that he was deciding to betray. And this is on a higher level, because I don't know what is deeper, to betray your own family members, because in the act of betrayal of your own country, you're also betraying your family members if you are not telling them what you're up to, because they are now facing the wrath of the consequences they may have to face due to the very decision that you have decided to just basically perform an act of treason. And when I read this, at first, he wanted no compensation for it. His drive was just to take vengeance, and little here and there of things that he was able to acquire that he would not be able to find in the Soviet Union at that time, was enough for him. And then eventually they did start to give him some compensation, some funding for all that he was doing, and it started to accumulate, even to a point where he knew that eventually he may not even get a hold of that. And even when they gave him an opportunity to leave his country, he chose to stay. And there was a time when he finally did decide, okay, well, maybe we will leave, and it was a little bit too late. So in this case, I think to myself, well then, when you betray, are you really truly accepting everything all the consequences that you're facing? Or does it just become more of something else? Because then he was requesting that he actually see people personally, rather than be a little bit more in the quiet side of it and more discreet about it. It was more that he actually enjoyed walking and talking with the CIA agents and so forth, and to me, I have to think to myself, when you do betray, is there some sense of desire to be powerful, to know that you hold something that someone else wants? And could you then act in that manner of feeling very powerful in the means of knowing that you are desired? So in my case, it wasn't that, because I look to that degree and I think to myself, even though those are two different parts, right? And you could beg to differ and say, well, yours is different because you didn't cause your country to fall back, and all of a sudden all the information that was provided obviously damaged them very much so. But in that case, to me, it was more of an emotional damage that I may have held in, thinking to myself that my sister believes, I'd always been in the wrong in telling on her. And I think to myself, it's like the Soviet Union having that emotion, right? That you decided to betray, that I have treated you well. Tolkachev lived in this one building where other engineers and other elites were, and their families resided. And so it wasn't as if he was suffering. He had access to all of those documents that he helped to build or was a part of, and yet he chose to share that information when he really shouldn't have. And I look at that as my sister and thinking to myself, sometimes we emotionally damage people, but in my case, was it intentional? Was it to really save her? Because in the way that Tolkachev expressed this in the story, it was more of like, he had read some books and he had really followed through with the mentality that his country could be a better place. And maybe in looking at my sister, I was thinking, I could help you be a better person. But unless something, in that case, the Soviet Union at that time, or my sister, really comes to that decision that they need to be fixed, there is nothing in their mind to think that they need fixing. And you have to respect that. So in the act of betrayal, are you really thinking that you are going to be a hero in trying to change something that does not want to be changed at all? And what is the price of trying? And is it even worth it? Hopefully I've made sense today in reflecting in the story, The $1 Billion Spy by David E. Hoffman. It was such a fascinating book that I read, and I really, again, in my odd ways, find a way to reflect, because it's all about growing. It's all about relating. It's all about asking yourself, what would you have done? What did you do? Have you done something similar? And I was able to reflect in that manner. So in the words of my mother, God bless us all. Have a great day. We all do wrong sometimes, but is there a just cause for what we do? I do know that wrong is wrong, and as being human, we just have to accept whatever actions we take upon and be able to stand by it and say, I did it because. Have a great day, everyone. Again, in the words of my mother, God bless us all. I'll see you next time.